very, very aggressive fighter. Like you were. And when I'm speaking to you now, like I've seen your post-fight videos and stuff like that, where you speak, and your persona is completely different. Well, I didn't know you on a personal level anyway, but has that got anything to do with your sort of like ayahuasca experience and stuff like that?
I think it has. I think it has, but I also think that that was the environment that I was allowed to be that person.
Yeah.
Like, I always say that the person that you see when I was competing in the UFC that's who I am, but it's 20% of my personality with the volume turned up to 100.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So the other parts of my personality in those moments, I can put them on the back shelf because I don't need them. Like, that's the moment where I can embrace that warlike mentality and I can be an animal.
Yeah.
So I allow myself to be.
Yeah, no, it was it was a very intimidating sight. I was like, holy shit! I was like, what's this guy going to be like tomorrow? When you steal my computer and start playing Forza. But what was your ayahuasca experience like? Because it's something I've always been interested in doing. Because I've tried DMT, but because I've never done drugs in my life, I just went straight to the top. You know what I mean? And I've never smoked anything, never done anything else. So I didn't have a clue how to inhale.
Right.
Incinerated my throat. So I felt like I was dying while I was about to go on a trip and stuff like that. What was the ayahuasca experience like for someone that's maybe sort of looking to do it?
It was far more, what's the best way of putting it? Far more spiritual and therapeutic than my experiences with other, especially with DMT. Like,
yeah, so you've done DMT as well?
Yeah. And I did ayahuasca first. So DMT is the active compound in ayahuasca. So you're effectively ingesting the same thing. But the difference is with ayahuasca, they're taking the leaf and the vine and they're combining them into a brew, and then you drink the brew, which has got the DMT in it.
Yeah.
And the enzymes from the leaves that they use, they inhibit the DMT being broken down in the stomach.
So it's sort of like a slower, calmer kind of hit as opposed to
a bungee jump into...
'Cause I've seen someone experiencing it as, like, DMT is almost like if you're in a rocket and you're taking off in it, it's like, holy shit, something's happening. Then when you get above the stratosphere, it's like, whoa, right, that's us here, we're chilling now. Ayahuasca, from what I've heard people talking about, it's almost like you just kind of like gently go into it, but you're out for a lot longer. So what was your experience and your visions like? Because people say it's so if you look at it from a science point, they'll say it's a hallucinogenic. But if you speak to anyone that does it, they'll say it's not hallucination. They'll say it's far deeper than that.
It can be both. I mean, there is a lot of variance with ayahuasca because it's still naturally brewed, and a lot of it is down to the person that does the brewing. You know, there's a guy called Ron Wheelock who's very, very famous in South America, and it was his medicine that I drank, his ayahuasca, and he's a very, very well-known ayahuasquero. Yeah. But then, like with DMT, DMT goes through that chemical process to refine it into a white powder. Yeah. And for me, it takes a big part of the experience out of it. So if you imagine ayahuasca as like a valley, right? You start at the regular level, and the part of the process of ayahuasca is you drink it and then you start to descend into the valley. And in the pit of the valley is the deep ayahuasca experience, the deep psychedelic trip. Yeah. And then you start to walk out the other side of it. DMT is like you've not gone the down and the up, you bungee jump right into it and then you come out again. And because it's so different to how you were 2 minutes ago, it's so overwhelming you don't really get much from it. With ayahuasca, it's almost like it brings you into the experience and kind of hold you while you're there. Yeah. And I mean, I had a lot of visuals. I had a lot of really, really vivid visualizations when I was drinking ayahuasca. Wow. But then sometimes my experience will be 8 hours long, 12 hours long. They can be very, very long, depending on the strength of it.
Are you in control of your body while you're out for it?
For the most part. Some people struggle.
Semi-detached from your body?
Sometimes very detached. Yeah. Sometimes very detached. Like with smoking DMT, I remember I was sitting on a magnetic mattress, which does a lot to the blood flow and stuff. It enhances the experience. And I remember smoking it, and then as I went to lay back down, as my head touched the pillow, I had no body. Oh. And I was just like a like a ball of fluid in a bubble sitting on the pillow, and that's how I felt. That was my perception of myself. With ayahuasca, you have those moments where you feel like you disconnect, but you also feel like there are moments where you're very much within your body and you're in the experience.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that with DMT.
No.
Like with ayahuasca, I felt very much like myself at certain times, but then other times I would feel like myself in a different life.
Yeah.
Or I would, like, I experienced myself as a wolf. I experienced myself as a tiger. I experienced myself as other people in past lives, which was something really unusual.
It's strange that you mentioned about the wolf, because I know Luke Stoltman and stuff like that. Almost, it's not like a shaman they go and see, but there's ways of sort of like tapping into that sort of like DMT, because obviously DMT is already there. And he was saying that because this woman, she sort of like just plays the drums, and he was like, honestly, he was like, before you know it, he was like, I turned into a wolf. And I'm often wondering if that was a sort of like more another way of tapping into that DMT supply, and he did it that way as opposed to inhaling it from an external sort of like source.
I think there's a lot of ways of getting. So, I'm not sure whether you've ever read the Spirit Molecule by Rick Strassman.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Right, it definitely worth. I mean, the documentary is fantastic, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, but the book that Rick Strassman writes is even better, because you get some real interesting accounts of people that have had experiences, and they're talking through these experiences. I don't know, I feel like it taps into quite a lot, but what's clear in that book is that DMT is something that's accessible to the body in certain times of life. So like
birth and death.
Exactly, birth and death. And the differences between a natural birth and a C-section and a birth with painkillers and drugs. What it actually affects is the DMT release in the mother and the child. So with the natural birth, with no drugs or anything, is very much more, obviously it's very natural for us, but the body's way of dealing with it is the DMT release.
Yeah.
So the DMT is released, which actually then helps the bond between the mother and the child.
Yeah.
And in stressful, traumatic situations, near-death experiences, like you can imagine when you've probably heard the story of Donald Cerrone in the cave, swimming under the when he was cave diving. You've got to watch that. It's a Joe Rogan podcast, and he's talking about cave diving.
Right.
And he got stuck in a cave.
Oh shit!
He couldn't see anything. The silt all kicked up, and he couldn't find his way out. And he knew he had about 40 minutes of oxygen left.
Oh my god!
Like in those moments, when you're so close to death, I think the body releases DMT as a way of helping you transition. Like the stressful moments in your life. And I also think this is why a lot of fighters gravitate towards psychedelic experiences.
Yeah, it seems to be a recurring theme.
Yeah, because a stressful experience like a fight will release a tiny amount of DMT.
Yeah.
I think if you're able to get into that state, you do have access to DMT to help you process these environments.
Yeah, it'd probably help you envisage the win and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
sort
for
of like
sure.
release that sort of inner confidence. So I know a few people that have done ayahuasca. Well, I know one person has done ayahuasca, but I know quite a few people that have done DMT. I've got a friend in Ireland called Willie Grattan, and he went to one of these ayahuasca retreats, and before it, he would sort of party, drink drugs, all of this. He did this experience, and he was like, Gordon, he was like, the best way to explain it was, and he's like, I know it sounds daft, but he was like, this entity, like God spoke to me and told me to basically get a grip. And he was like, also, this deity laid out a plan for me. He's like, and I'm not allowed to tell anybody about this plan. He's like, but now he's like a born-again Christian, he doesn't touch drugs, nothing like that. And I don't really see anybody doing ayahuasca or DMT and coming out of it for the worse. They always seem to come out of it for the better. And it's just, I feel like it's something that's not really looked into much, you know what I mean? And it's almost as if like the government and stuff like that's put a ban on it for some weird reason, when you're not going to walk past someone that's on an ayahuasca trip that's going to smash you up. You know what I mean? You'll not walk past a group of stoners that are going to smash you up. You know what I mean?
No.
You don't walk past someone that's on a mushroom trip. Why the fuck is that banned?
Because it frees your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because it frees your mind. So, something that's far more far more familiar to us in this region of the world is psilocybin mushrooms,
Yeah,
right? Now the
talk to
association
you
with
about that as
magic
well.
mushrooms and all that kind of stuff, I don't like that
I
term.
don't like calling it that either.
Because it
Sounds
it
junky.
belittles it. It does.
Yeah.
It does. It makes it like a party drug, and it's not. Like if you have the right dose of mushrooms, you don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to speak to anybody, because it's so close to to an ayahuasca experience that it's too overwhelming to be in a party environment to be doing
Yeah.
stupid things. And I think that. I mean, if you go back into history, so like a lot of the psilocybin, history is associated with paganism,
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why the church went on the campaign. I actually think the Scottish government are about to apologise. Have you heard this?
No, I've not heard of it. No.
There's I can't remember what it was, between sort of 1400 and 1700. About 2,600 witches were killed, executed in Scotland.
Mental,
For being a part of the pagan
absolutely
faith.
mental.
But that would have been the association of, living out in the forest and understanding how to live off the land and what's
Yeah.
medicinal, and then not needing to go to church to be in contact with God.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big thing. It's a control mechanism, right? So like if you can go into the forest and pick some mushrooms and eat them, and you don't need to go and speak to the vicar
Yeah.
and confess your sins or whatever, then there's no control in that environment.
No.
The church doesn't have control. They can't get that bit of cash out of you. Same thing with the government. They don't want you thinking freely, which is why you can buy cigarettes and alcohol,
Yeah,
but you
because
can't go into the
they-
forest and pick mushrooms.
They keep